Hello, everybody. The last 20 years, I was primarily working in companies that had three main characteristics. First of all was strong organic revenue growth. Second was a strong free cash flow that generated this growth. And finally, and third, fast, bold decision-making. And the goal of this presentation is to share some insights on the principles that are behind this growth. Many people were asking me how you do this or that, but there's no magic dust involved. It's rather a focus on the foundations, but the foundations, from my point of view, very often they got forgotten. And I experienced this when I started at Thomann. I was visiting the department for violins. I have a brass music background, and I was on the sales floor to understand a little bit, hey, how do you sell actually a violin? And there was an old lady, she was around 60, and with 50 years of experience playing the instrument. She was very outspoken, partly offensive, and very, very confident. On the other hand, there was my colleague, he was more or less the opposite. He was more or less shy, very quiet. And there was a discussion. She wanted to buy a violin for 8K, for 8,000 euros, which is a significant investment. And she was convinced, okay, this is not able to create the sound. And she always was interrupting my colleague who wanted to address and approach her. And basically she made the point, there is no point at all that I will buy this instrument. I think you cannot convince me. And then this guy actually put the instrument in his hand. And then two things happened. First of all, a charisma boot from 0 to 200. Even I could recognize, okay, he seems to be a super pro. And then he started to play something, and he started to play Concerto 61. It's from Beethoven, and if you are in classical music, you will know this is one of the hardest things you can play on a violin. And then there was silence in the room, full attention on him. No interruption anymore from the customer. And end of the story was, she was buying everything what he told her to buy. He was super professional. What I found out afterwards, before he worked for Thomann, he was the first violin in one of the big symphony orchestras in Russia. So it's Champions League. And this level we have everywhere in our sales department. The picture you see here, these are all colleagues from Thomann. We have the competency to equip a symphony orchestra, bring it on stage, and we are playing here in the Symphony Hall of Bamberg. And why is this important? If you want to sell something, you need to like to know it like everybody else. It's not often the case. Think about if you have a sales approach over the last 12 months. How often did it happen if you had the questions to a sales guy, and then he's answering, hey, I'm just covering the commercials, I have to bring in somebody else. To whom did this happen? I think it's not unusual. But it's very important. Now what you are selling, and this principle is often forgotten. And simply ask yourself, where are you? Are you part of the starting 11? If the team will be new assembled, do you have this industry and domain knowledge? Many applications that I also receive, they focus on their MBA, they have some functional knowledge. Don't get me wrong, it's important. But that doesn't sell any kind of instrument. So this industry and domain knowledge got a little bit outdated and forgotten over the last years from my point of view. But for us, it's super crucial to sell. And even in many domains where you have some functional experts, we don't have functional experts. For example, logistics. Over the last 20 years, we scaled our logistic facilities basically from 0 revenues to 1.5 billion. And the guy who was running it, he was a police officer in the past. Then, police was too boring for him. Then he was working in security in a nightclub. Then he was running his own nightclub. He was a friend, he grew up in the same city like Hans Thomann, the company owner. And then he asked him, can you run logistic for me? I need somebody who has respect on the floor. Logistics could be sometimes rough. And yeah, so he was establishing them this logistic facility, but he had music background, that's important. And simply ask yourself, can you ask the 3 first questions of a customer on your own? This is the one main criteria if you want to sell at Thomann. You need to be able to answer this kind of questions. And if you cannot do that, you have also an issue to understand what your customer really wants. So a musician, in our case, does he want to buy an instrument? No. They don't want to buy an instrument. If you are a musician, you want to perform on stage. You care about the sound. You want to bring something across with your music. That's a different thinking than an MBA thinking. That's different. You want to bring something across. And what our task is as a retailer, we have to support him to get the right sound and have a nice experience. And here you find a picture. Who is actually a musician here in this room? Who's playing an instrument? Who is playing a brass instrument? Who is playing a tube? Nobody playing the tube? Okay, doesn't matter. So this instrument here, this is a Melton. This is the top of the top. It costs 22K, and this kind of instrument you usually only see if you're in the Berlin Symphony Hall, if you went to Milan to the Opera House, then they use this kind of instrument. No other retailer in the world has this instrument actually on the shopping floor. This is our store actually in Treppendorf. We still have a physical store. 98% of our revenues are online, but 2% are there. But it's super important for us to understand what do the customer really would like to achieve. And if he's running there into this room, and if you know what you are seeing, then they are emotionally attached. Nobody of this musician is waiting for AI bots or something like this. Why should I create a marketplace? Only because it's a hype. I often see a disconnection in the industry because of all these hypes and the job that has to be done. People just focus on the hypes, but it doesn't sell anything. What is really important, and do you really understand what is important for the customer? This is one foundation that is very, very crucial. And there we are focusing on, that the customer has a nice experience if he's entering here the floor. Another thing is about, this is a more commercial part that is often misunderstood, is selling for the regular price. If you went shopping online in January and almost every store, 50% discount, 30% discount, 20% discount, and the hope is usually, oh, this will boost my revenues. But discounting doesn't boost your revenues, forget it. That's why we also don't show discounts. Some insights from us over the last 20 years. The revenues of all of our business quarters in the fourth quarter, they are flat, they are always stable. And if you have something like a Cyber Week, I mean, everybody is announcing, hey, it was so big like never and it's incredible. But it's a little bit bullshit. If you take a step backwards, then you will recognize, okay, my revenue share in my fourth quarter is stable. You just reallocate revenues. In our case, it was the first year, 23 was the first year, where November was our strongest month of revenue growth. Usually it was December, but we are just reallocating with pricing and discounts revenues. It's not helpful for the overall revenue growth and not really helpful for your operating margin. It's helpful for us because it's the demand is shifting. I don't need to supply a third shift in logistics anymore, so all the time in December, which will save me 150 people. So selling for the regular price is very important, but what is happening often in the day-to-day business, think about if you're booking a flight. Oh, okay, this is a nice flight, it sounds good, it's just $800, and then you click, hey, guess what, the price changed. Now it's cost $500 more. This is what kind of an expensive click. Maybe some sales guy told you can optimize your revenues, but it's totally pissing off your customers. In the B2B sector, it's even more important, price stability. And these things get often forgotten, and it's very important, what do you communicate? We don't communicate here cheap prices. This is a different kind of communication. 3.5K for a flute, that's a significant investment. We try to communicate here experience and knowledge about the industry because we want to attract musicians, the professional ones, with a very narrow target. And selling for the regular price is very important. So be careful with pricing. Always take a step back and think about what you are doing. And also think about digital. And I mean, the last conference where it's all about AI and chatbots. AI is actually nothing new. Basically, every e-commerce retailer since the last 15 years had to deal with machine learning. And new is only the hype about large language models. But how does it help your customer? In our case, in an iBot, I'm selling an emotional instrument. I'm selling instruments. It's emotional. It's an emotional product. And do you want to engage with a chatbot? It's not very helpful. We are just focusing on very basics. And if you look at a textbook from the 50s, what are the basics of retail? Make a nice assortment and provide a convenient access to your assortment. And what you see here is actually a thing that we started this year. We call it the symbol bot. And this is a robot. And this robot is hitting actually a symbol at a certain stage, and we record this. You can see here a laser who was actually measuring a symbol, and there are around 1,100 symbols on the market, and we record all of them. And then we made them accessible on our web page, and if you click in our shop, you can say, I want to hit this symbol at this stage, at that stage. I want to hit it hard, I want to hit it soft. And because there's a robot behind it, it's standardized, so you can compare it. Otherwise, it was not possible for a drummer to select a symbol. First of all, which retailer has more than 1,100 symbols on stock? It's only in Treppendorf where we are located, but who wants to come to Treppendorf? That's a different story. So on this way, we provide access to the assortment. This has nothing to do with current trends. This is just thinking, what does the customer really need? And on this way, digital can enhance the experience. In a similar way, you can connect your guitar to our online shop. Who is playing a guitar, electric guitar? Maybe raise your hand. Then you have a demand for effects, some pedal boards. Just a guitar without a special effect, then it doesn't sound like the heavy metal. And there are numerous of these effects that you connect to it. And we put them basically with a Raspberry Pi on a server rack. And then we had an engineering team that was busy 1.5 years to figure out how the heck should this go and work. It's a lot of electrical engineering stuff. How can we connect now these boards with our online shop if you plug in your guitar in your audio interface that you can test and play online more or less in real time? So on this way, you have a completely different experience. You don't need to travel to a store anymore. At the same time, we reduce return rates. So it's actually helpful, but it's a very different thought to think about digital and digital experience. And this is very important, and so we are not focusing on the current trends. Of course, we have a short look, but at the very end, how does it improve the experience for the customer? This is critical for Thomann. From an organizational point of view, what I see in many companies is a lot of pivoting about strategy, structure, reorganizations all the time, and this could be very risky. It has to be very clear what you would like to achieve, what your purpose is. This is our homepage, thomann.io, where we speak about technical stuff. On the start page, and we communicate there very directly what it's all about, what people like to achieve. There's also an employee handbook. We also communicate completely transparently how does our organizational structure look like, how does the drumbeat look like, how does our team work throughout the year, when does the product team show something, how do they get feedback, what kind of Slack channels we use. You can read about everything transparently. This is very important for us, communicate transparently about what is our strategy, what is our structure, how do we work. Many companies fail on this. What will happen if I asked everybody of you if you can describe me your strategy and the top 3 goals, and if I would ask your colleague as well? In many cases, there are different answers. If there are different answers, how do you make sure that you keep your company on track? Even though we make it very explicit, it's still hard to get this done, that everybody understands you, what you would like to achieve. So work on these principles. These are pretty much foundations, but they're not communicated properly, they are not outspoken, they are not sharp. And there things go wrong. So strategy, structure, systems, or let's call it a process, is important. You need to have a drumbeat. Bam, bam, bam. If the drum set in an orchestra is messing up, the whole experience is messed up. You need a drum beat in an organization as well. Give stability. And the thing is, if you pivot on these things, like the drum beat, on vision, strategy, structure, this is a hard thing, because changes in this area, they create a lot of noise. People start to speak about, hey, how does it affect me? At the very end, you will find out, in 9 out of 10 cases, you are not affected at all, but everybody is busy to discuss about the strategy and the structure and stuff like this, and you are distracted, and you're distracted for many, many months. So keep this thing stable. I don't change the structure, we pivot on different levels. Where we need flexibility is our stream structure and periodical goals, and of course, we have to be very fast if it's about security issues or bugs. You need an organizational structure that is fixed and creates stability. At the same time, you need to enable flexibility and support to improvise things. So this is very fundamental, and it starts with the fixing points. And these fixing points, they are often forgotten, and sometimes organizational changes are too fast and not thought through. And this is also some learning over the last 20 years. Be very careful about this stuff. And to sum everything up, what I just presented, the basic message is, please focus on the fundamentals and get them right. Otherwise, if you do the fundamentals right, you're already within the money. You're not out the money, you're within the money. Most companies don't focus on these things. They have this PR stuff. Oh yeah, we are customer-centric. But can you answer the first 3 questions a customer has? So as a self-test, focus on the stuff. And if it's about e-commerce trends, I mean, trends are always big in the tech sector, and there's for a good reason, but always asked, does this kind of stuff help me to get the job done, the basic job? And don't let yourself get distracted. And create a drum beat. And with a nice drum beat, everything flows, and at the very end, it's all about flow and having a good time. And therefore, I also hope you enjoyed this little talk a little bit about the foundations. If you have any kind of more questions about Thomann, how we work, I think we still have some time about some questions, then feel free to ask.
Okay. Greatly appreciate those insights. I could definitely speak firsthand of the experience buying products from Thomann online, especially the heavy metal pedal as you described. You could try it with 4 or 5 different sounds and modes to get a good idea of what the product is that you're buying. Very, very engaging and insightful. And so one of the first questions that I wanted to ask you today was Thomann's unique selling approach. And how is Thomann's unique selling approach to selling music products online different from traditional e-commerce methods?
I think it's not different. It's just focused actually on these fundamentals. Decisions were always made from a customer point of view. For example, our logistic facilities, they are set up in a different way. Usually if you run a logistic operations, it's all about efficiency to get the boxes out. And in our case, if you order with us 4 pieces, you will not receive 5 or 4 boxes. We consolidate everything in one package for different reasons. First of all, it's more convenient for you as a customer. You don't have to deal with all the paper stuff. Now with the increasing shipping costs, it's also cost efficient for us. But the investment to get it done in such a way that you just send out one package, it's a multi-million invest in your logistic infrastructure. But basically, it just comes from the inside, what is more convenient from the customer, and just to focus on this. And it's not a distraction from some business school blah, blah, blah about efficiency. Efficiency is also important, but it's starting from the customer. And it's the other way around. And in many companies, sometimes the thinking from the customer is getting lost, I think.
Absolutely. I know when I bought my bass, it came with an amp, cables, and everything, and it was all in one big box that looked like a coffin. And I remember getting that from the DHL person. I'm like, what? What's being delivered to me? But I was very impressed with the presentation, the branded taping on the box. It's very well thought out and very, very well planned and strategized. So I was very impressed with all of that, being new to Thomann and living here. Now, what would you say are some specific challenges Thomann faces in the music e-commerce sector, and how are they addressed?
I think the general challenges that are very similar with the challenges most retailers have. I mean, there's increasing competition from Chinese players. In our case, it's not that strong, but what we experience is that maybe you order a microphone from us, from Thomann, which sells above 1,000 euros, and then you receive a return with a fake, and this fake is very sophisticated. And if you sell it as a B stock, we would have an issue. So this is a little challenge, and on a smaller range, but we observe that this kind of fraud is increasing. And that's definitely a thing. And the other thing is also very generic, but it affects us as well. It's bureaucracy in terms of new laws that are invented by the European Union. Most of them have a very good intent, but they are not thought through. And so we have an increasing investment of people who just have to take care about this legal stuff. This is a challenge, actually.
Absolutely. I can imagine that'd be very difficult to navigate. I'm actually in the process of starting a Helene Fischer death metal cover band. So, and I'm the screamer. So I definitely will talk to you about some microphones, because I'm not so great on that aspect of it. But another quick question that I had for you regarding digital innovation. And what sort of digital innovations has Thomann implemented to stay competitive in the online market?
Different ones. Basically, it's all about like this stuff. This is a symbol bot, these tools to test the things. These are the main focus. We have some stuff like a cable guy, which helps you to select a cable, which could be very complicated. It's always thinking, the access to assortment, how you can make it better. And otherwise, it's what I mentioned in the presentation. We focus on the basics, that you don't disconnect it to your customer base. For a very long time, we were also only recruiting musicians. That's very important. At this scale now, it's not possible anymore, but in the beginning, it was quite significant. I mean, if you're a musician and still playing when you're a graduate from college, maybe you don't have work experience, but you have 20 years of experience in the music sector, which is quite helpful. And this gives us a competitive advantage. These deep insights, and there the innovation is coming from. It's coming from our colleagues. The TikTok channel we are operating, it was a guy who was, he's actually very entertaining. We could also sell him to a TV station, but he was working in customer care. He can play a lot of instruments on his own. So it was just, hey, you are kind of entertaining. Let's test TikTok. And within 3 months, with close to 500,000 of followers. So it's coming from the people.
Absolutely. And do you have any final closing remarks or insights that you'd like to share with our guests today?
Define your hard skill. That's important. It's often also forgotten. People just talk about soft skills, being an inspirational leader, but just being an inspirational leader doesn't create a single line of code. Focus on both. What is your hard skill? And I think that's important to get some stuff on the road. Hard skill is playing an instrument, but it's also getting some stuff done. At the very end, it's about solving issues and create a good experience. It's important. Focus on both, the balance. That's my suggestion.
Wonderful.